Students, as we have seen that in the ancient world, and that is the world which was there, which existed 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, naturally agriculture happened to be the most important commercial activity, and that was the activity which occupied most of the time of the people, and not just a commercial activity for that matter, because you had to feed yourself, you had to feed your family. So naturally, the feeding part, the agriculture, pastoralism, all this was very, very important. Okay, not just for making money, or if you talk about in those years when there was barter system, then naturally, even if you had to keep yourself alive, you had to produce something in order to exchange it with something else, because you produce something which someone else has, and someone else produces something that you have. So naturally, if it has to be a give and take transaction, unlike today that we don't produce anything literally, we just sit in our homes and we work in our offices, we just have the money which happens to be the medium of exchange, rather than the commodity itself. So we just have the money which facilitates as a medium of exchange, and we buy the things that we need. But this thing was not there in the ancient world. Okay, so today we start and rather continue with the same topic, and coming to the last paragraph here, as you can understand how important agriculture was, because and how important it used to be uh, in the power equation of a society, whereby people, or the families, or the clans, or the tribes which had the most amount of animals with them, or who controlled the maximum fertile areas with them, those families, those tribes naturally had far more prosperity than the tribes who had less animals with them, and who controlled less fertile areas, and their land was not much close to the river. So naturally, and this is not just there in what we are studying, the chapter which is in the Mesopotamian civilization. This is there in all the old civilizations, and even today, if in Africa, because they are not as industrialized a society compared to the other parts of the world. Africa as a continent still has a lot many countries where 80% of the economic activity even today moves and revolves and rotates around agriculture and animals. Okay, so even there, even today, the tribes which have the most cattle, the camels, they are considered to be the ones, the most rich ones, and the ones who do not have those animals, they are considered to be poor tribes. Okay, so the situation is still kind of same in many parts of the world. So these included, a few gained the power to establish their own rules. So naturally, the tribes, the clans which had more fertile land under them, and which had more number of animals, so they gained in influence. And these included Akkadians, Amorites, Assyrians, and our Arameans, and you would read more about them in the coming paragraphs. The king of Mari were Amorites, whose dress differed from that of the original inhabitants, and who respected not only the gods of Mesopotamia but also raised a temple at Mari for Dagan, the god of steppe. Steppe would be, or as we had seen in the previous videos, steppes are essentially the grasslands, okay, which feed the animals, which feed the pastoral societies. Okay, if the animals don't get proper feeding, then the rest of the activities, like taking out milk, producing cheese and butter and skin and all that, would be gone, right? So these grasslands were extremely important. So naturally, something which had a very important place in the scheme of things. Naturally, there was a god for that, and this god was Dagan, and they also had temple in his honor. Now, Mesopotamian society and culture were thus open to different people and cultures, and the vitality of this civilization was perhaps due to this intermixture. And uh, I hope you understood this last part, where it is trying to say that the Mesopotamian civilization embraced different cultures and society. It was open to people from different groups. It was not a closed society. And naturally, when people from different cultures, different strengths, different skills naturally come together, it is obvious that that society would be much more prosperous, because they would, every culture and every community is bringing its own skills and ideas and new ideas, and everyone working together. So naturally, I wish, students, I actually wish I could have showed, because this would have to be explained on the board. Okay, now this is the palace of Mari, at Mari of King Zimrilim. Now he was a very important ruler. If you read about the history of Mesopotamia, this gentleman, Mr. That is King Zimrilim, has been mentioned quite often. The palace at Mari of King Zimrilim. This is something which I would expect you to read. Okay, because I can't explain it on the board right now. Now, so the king of Mari, however, had to be vigilant. Like all the kings, herders of various tribes were allowed to move in the kingdom, but they were watched. The camps of herders are mentioned frequently in letters between kings and officials. In one letter, an official writes to the king that he has been seeing frequent fire signals at night sent by one camp to another, and he suspects that a raid or an attack is being planned. Students, a bit of I hope you understand what this paragraph is, but this is something why it needs explanation, because this is not something which was unique to the Mesopotamians only. Okay, in the ancient world, that is how the messages used to get communicated. Because you have to understand, there was no WhatsApp in those times, and there was no email, and there was no telegram, those kind of things. So but the messages still needed to be communicated. The capital city still needed information from different parts of the provinces. So naturally, there had to be a very efficient and a smart system of communication. And sometimes there used to be through signals, whereby at regular intervals they used to have the checkposts, and you do not physically needed to be there at the other checkpost to communicate the message. You could just through signals communicate. If you should just ensure that the distance between your checkpost and the other checkpost is visible, so that you make certain gestures in the air, or probably light a torch, the torch, that means the fire, and make certain signals, and the people, or the guard at the other checkpost is able to understand what you are essentially trying to say. And then he has also been trained in that fashion, of course, and then he also gestures the same signal, and so that the checkpost closest to him also is able to see. And that is how the message used to get communicated to far away lands, to and it used to reach the capital. And it was not just in Mesopotamia that it was so. In fact, the whole Great Wall of China, if you read about that, the Great Wall of China, they had at regular intervals, they had those posts, whereby, if there was a Mongol activity, because the Chinese always feared the Mongol aggression and Mongol attack, and because throughout history they had been attacked by Mongols. So they had very elaborate structures to ensure that if Mongols were hundreds of kilometers away, they still had their system of signaling and coding, and sometimes through smoke they would light something, and sometimes they would fire a torch, and so that that message could be communicated to the nearest garrison, so that they could understand that yes, we need to immediately start preparing for the attack. So that's what essentially this paragraph is about. Now, located on the Euphrates is a prime position, in a prime position for trade, in wood, copper, tin, oil, wine, and other various other goods that were carried in boats along the Euphrates between south and the mineral rich uplands. As we had also seen in the previous videos, that uh, carrying your goods through land uses enormous amount of resources. It takes a huge amount of time, and besides that, you're not able to carry much. And on top of it, the animals who are actually carrying your stuff, they need to be fed at regular intervals, they need rest at regular intervals. So that is a very time taking enterprise. So uh, the it was a huge advantage for the people of Mesopotamia, that they had two major river systems there, the Euphrates and the Tigris, and because of that, they could load their boats with hundreds of kilograms worth of stuff, and they could just sail to different lands for trading or exchanging of good, so that it was not because it was not a headache for them to feed animals and the other things as and the because they did not encounter those challenges. Now Mari is a good example of an urban center prospering on trade. So like the other trading centers in ancient world, even for that matter today, there are a lot of towns and cities across the world which are commercially, they might not be themselves producing much, but because of their location they happen to be prospering, because they are able to they are able to attract so much of traders and so many traders, because probably they could be because the people are smart there, there is peace and tranquility. It could also be because it happens to be at a very very important trading route, and that is why people don't have a choice but to be there. So those kind of things, and Mari happened to be an important trading center in those times. So naturally, if you have wealth and people from all across coming and settling, so naturally you are a rich kingdom, because no one likes to settle in a poor kingdom, right? And that is why barley came in special grain boats. Most important tablets refer to copper from Alasia, the island of Cyprus. Cyprus happened to be between in the it's a Mediterranean island, students, between in fact, even today Cyprus is contested heavily between Turkey and Greece. These two countries, half of it is owned by Turkey, half of it is owned today by Greece. Known for its copper and tin, and was an item of trade. And as bronze was the main industrial material for tools and weapons, this trade was of great importance. Thus, although the kingdom of Mari was not militarily strong, it was exceptionally prosperous, right? And as we have seen and always discussed, that bronze is essentially it's an indication that a society happens to be a very advanced society, because bronze is not found in nature in its free state. Okay, it has to be made, it has to be forged in fire. Okay, it is a metallic alloy. It is a combination of a lot of elements like copper and tin and aluminium and those kind of things, so that needs a certain amount of expertise and skill. Okay, we shall continue. Thank you.